So, welcome back to the video classroom. Last time I had you listen to me, I spoke about interspecies relationships and began touching upon the topic of biodiversity. Today I'm going to take a short amount of time to explore the concept of biodiversity in just a little more detail, break it down into a couple different sections and explore the different ways in which a ecosystem can be considered diverse. And so we'll be looking at those. So that's species diversity, genetic diversity, and ecological diversity. And once I've gone through those, we'll also look at a topic called ecosystem services, and the value of ecosystem services is deeply intertwined into the biodiversity of any given ecosystem. So I'm connecting them together for this particular lecture. Shouldn't take long, so yeah, sit tight, listen up. So the first type of diversity that goes into assessing how diverse any given ecosystem is species diversity. And this was the type of diversity that I touched upon in my original explanation of biodiversity in the previous lecture. And so species diversity is, as it sounds, right? It's a diversity of species within the ecosystem. So it's having many different types of creatures in the ecosystem. Right? And it's not just animals. It's the different types of plants that you have available. It's the different type of microbes, such as bacteria, that you have available. It is the different types of animals as well. And so you need a whole slew of different creatures to maintain a healthy ecosystem. And so you need your producers, you need your predators, you need your prey, you need your decomposers. Right? They each play a vital role in the health of the ecosystem. And the more players that you have, the more diverse a group that you have, the healthier the ecosystem is going to be, the more resilient it will be to destruction, to change, to issues due to its diversity. Right? And so when you have a mix of different types of creatures, when issues come along, the issues will impact each type of creature in a different way. And so you want multiple different types of producers in your ecosystem, right, who can maybe process different levels of sunlight more effectively. So if all of a sudden your ecosystem gets less sunlight than it used to, some of your producers might die, but a lot of your producers are going to be okay. Right? And so this is what species diversity provides. Okay? Pretty straightforward. So, second type of diversity that we're going to look at is genetic diversity. And so genetic diversity occurs within any given species. And so we are isolating a single population within the ecosystem, and we are looking at how different these individuals are from one another on the genetic level. And so the genetic differences will be expressed as differences in traits. And so depending on how diverse our gene pool is within any given population, the individuals in that population might be very different from one another, or they might be very, very similar. And so if we imagine a bird species, I call it a red-breasted cockatoo. So we got our red-breasted cockatoo population in New Zealand. Why not? Why not New Zealand? And so we're looking at the population, and in this example, it's going to be a very genetically diverse population, high levels of diversity. Right? And some of the cockatoos might be really tall, some of the cockatoos might be really tiny, some of the cockatoos might be really fat, and some of the cockatoos might be really skinny. Right? Because there's a large amount of genetic diversity, we're going to have a lot of different physical traits within this population. And so a storm comes through New Zealand, big scary hurricane comes smashing through New Zealand, right? And the really fat cockatoos can't fit into the cockatoo holes to hide from the hurricane, so they get blown away. Ah! and now they're dead. Right? But our tiny little cockatoos can emerge out of the hidey holes, and they're fine. So the population's cool. I mean, it's sad because a lot of them are dead now, but at least it still exists, right? And so that genetic diversity allowed that individual population to be resilient and to persist through this particular crisis. And so the same way that species diversity allows an entire ecosystem to be resilient to change, right? Genetic diversity allows a population to be able to be persistent and survive and be resilient through crises. So genetic diversity is within an individual population. How mixed up, how diverse are the individuals in that population? And so the last level of biodiversity that we're going to look at is the largest level. It is ecological diversity. And to look at this kind of diversity, we actually have to step up to the level of biosphere. Right? So we're considering the entirety of the planet when we look at ecological diversity. And so this is, as it sounds, the diversity of the ecosystems that you have on the planet. And so ecosystems can be very, very, very different from one another. The ecosystem in the ocean is vastly different than the ecosystem in the Rocky Mountains. And so the more varied the ecosystems are on the planet, the healthier the entire biosphere is going to be. And so the same principles that drive the resilience in genetic and species diversity drives the resilience generated in ecological diversity. Right? It just has to be perceived on a larger scale. And so if all of our ecosystems have the same qualities, something detrimental to any given ecosystem on our planet would be detrimental to the entirety of the planet as a whole. But if we have more varied ecosystems, right, something might happen to one part of our planet, but the rest of our planet would persist and life would be okay. So pretend an asteroid comes and smashes into the Earth. A lot of the stuff on the land is going to be really messed up. Right? A lot of the animals are going to die. A lot of the plants are going to die. It's going to be really, really bad. But there'll be pockets of life in the ocean that are doing okay. Right? They'll live and they'll go through evolution again and we'll catch back up. So things will never be the same as they were, but life won't just stop existing entirely because some of those ecosystems will survive even through the greatest of catastrophes. Right? And so eventually one day the sun's going to blow up and then the whole planet's going to be gone. That's a different story. Right? But we all suffer that same weakness where the sun blowing up kills all of us, right? So that's a good example of how having a non-diverse biosphere would work, right? We all have the same weakness to the sun blowing up, and so that's it. Planet's gone. Bye. So this last topic, ecosystem services, is a topic I'm kind of torn on. The perspective is very human-centric, right? It's very anthrocentric, and I'm not huge on that kind of approach to things. I'm more in the camp that we're just animals, right? Very biological perspective on it. I mean, we're really cool animals. I mean, we're not the coolest animals, but we are cool animals, but we're animals. That's it, right? We have a very specialized skill set, which is, a lot more powerful than the skill sets of other animals. But in the end, we're just animals. So this whole ecosystem services thing that I'm about to explain to you doesn't exactly jive with my typical outlook. But I'm going to explain the idea to you anyways, because, you got to have your own opinion on it. Maybe that's the way you look at the world. Maybe you think humans are the awesomest, coolest animal ever. Maybe you don't even think we're animals. Maybe you think we're different. Maybe you think we're above animals, right? And so I'm gonna give you the explanation of this thing and allow you to do with it as you please. So ecosystem services is the perspective of looking at ecology to see what it does for humans, right? So like, what are the ecological benefits to human beings of having a healthy ecosystem? And so these are things like food production. And so having a healthy, diverse ecosystem allows for a higher level of food production. More food. Obviously, we like more food, right? And so having a healthy, diverse ecosystem aids us in things like agriculture. And so having a good, healthy, diverse ecosystem means that we have a bunch of different types of bugs, and those bugs can do things like pollinate our plants. Right? Like if you run an apple orchard, you definitely want your bees around to pollinate your apple trees, because you need them pollinated. Other things like pest control, right? And so if you have things like mice running around your farm, right, the mice might be eating the bugs that would eat your tomato plants. So that's beneficial. But maybe your mice eat your corn, right? But fortunately, you also have raccoons running around, and they're catching up the mice and eating the mice. And so by having that diversity, your food production, your agriculture is going to be more successful than if we just had only beetles that eat lettuce. Right? I mean, the lettuce game would be screwed if all we had was beetles that ate lettuce and nothing that ate the beetles. So these are the types of things that ecosystem services are talking about, like water cleaning. So like a healthy ecosystem will naturally purify the water in a region. And so water will evaporate into the sky, rain down, go through the ground, filter it out, and it'll be clean. Now, disturbances to the ecosystem can ruin this whole flow of things, right? And that's not good because we need clean water as humans. We don't want to drown. Right? What else is there? What other things does the ecosystem do for us? There's food services. There's water purification. I mean, there's the whole global warming story, right? Climate change, as it's more accurately depicted as now. There's this notion of carbon storage, carbon sinks. And so the ocean, specifically the ocean, like other bodies of water do this too, but like the ocean is a really big body of water, so it's the most important one. The ocean can hold a certain amount of carbon dioxide. Right? And so the big issue with carbon emissions is all this carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is ruining the way in which weather is being processed on this planet. And the climate is being changed by the emissions of carbon. There's too much carbon in the atmosphere, changes weather patterns, ruins everything. The ocean can hold a lot of carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide is floating in the air, goes down in the ocean, sinks, dissolves into the water, and then it's cool. It's just chilling out in there, right? We filled up the ocean with carbon dioxide. It's full now. So now it can't hide in there anymore. Right? But the more plant life and the more algae that we have in the ocean, the more of that carbon dioxide that can be processed because they're using the carbon dioxide to do photosynthesis. Right? And so we get more algae, we get less carbon dioxide in the ocean, we can put more into the ocean. Right? Now the problem is that we have too much algae. And so we need something to balance out the algae. And so you need something that eats algae. But you can't have them eat too fast because you'll be out of algae, right? So you need something to eat the thing that eats the algae. And then you need something to eat the thing that eats the thing that eats the algae. And you just need these regulatory processes. And so you need these diverse ecosystems in order to maintain these ecosystem services. Right? And without these ecosystem services, like, humans are going to die. So if you like being alive, because I like being alive. So if you like being alive, ecosystem services are important. And it is something to consider when making the argument that ecology is a very important study. I mean, to me, it's just blatantly obvious from the get-go that we should care about the ecology stuff, because we should care about our ecosystems, because they're important and they're cool and they're fragile. So yeah, but if anybody's like, who cares about ecosystems? You can be like, well, here's what ecosystems do for you. So, ecosystem services. Yeah, and that's it. That's the end of the video. Nice short one. Pretty straightforward today. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like how short it is. I know it's better when it's short because then you can listen to the whole thing without taking breaks. So hopefully you took some notes. Hopefully you're ready for this subject next time we meet. Yeah. Biodiversity, species diversity, genetic diversity, ecological diversity, and ecosystem services. Thank you for coming. I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care.